Hello and welcome to a solo episode of Your Life, Your Way. I'm your host, Kathleen McDermott. Wanted to speak today and touch on stress. Your life, your way, and why we don't live life our way. You hear me say all the time, life is your gift. We spend too much time being and doing how the rest of the world thinks we should. And living that way is what is at the root of so much of our stress. You also hear me talk about the conditioning. Every human is experiencing their own level of human conditioning. It is a part of life. And getting to understand that, coming to that understanding, is where you can begin to make changes and begin to live life on your terms. Living life on your terms doesn't mean that you're putting everyone else aside. It just means that you're bringing yourself to the forefront of your life. And that's okay. It's your life. Stress comes from our emotions and our thoughts, how we react to things, and it's a vicious cycle. How often do you find yourself reacting to a similar situation over and over again the same way? When you are responding, not respond, but you're reacting in that way, maybe reacting defensively, angrily, feeling offended, hurt. Maybe you've put up a wall and you think that helps protect you from whatever it is that does not make you feel safe. All of this and so much more is a part of the level of stress, the chronic stress that is so common in today's society. Society is another part of our conditioning. It's not just generational, it's also societal. When we say we're stressed, what does that mean? Well, to put it simply, something's bugging the crap out of us. Something might be bugging the crap out of you and you're just feeling awful about it and you don't know how to handle it. You're tired of facing it, whatever that situation is, or maybe it's something completely new. Having the skills and having the tools, having resources to help you handle things when they do come up is so important to your physical health, your emotional health, your mental health, your spiritual health. And and you say, it's not easy. No, it isn't. But you know what? Being stressed all the time, being emotionally overwhelmed, being sleep deprived, that's not easy either. I know I've been there. It's not an easy path. Time is going to continue moving forward. So whether you stay in that place of suffering, of discomfort, or you make changes, the time is still going to move forward. That's saying, I can't go to college. I'll be 58 years old. Well, you'll be 58 or 60, whatever it happens to be anyways. When we grab an understanding, when we dig, I call it like a little archaeological dig, when we uncover why we react to things the way we do, things, experiences, people, it's not about making more excuses. It's not about finding where to place more blame. It's about releasing yourself from so much weight that you're carrying. It's about compassion for yourself and others in the past, in the moment, and in the future. Giving yourself grace for what you didn't know, for what you're learning, and what strengths you're uncovering when you do this work. I find for me personally, I'll be honest, probably one of the biggest things that I'm still working on is when I'm driving. There's still a little impatience there with mostly crazy drivers who risk other people's lives, but that's not what we're going to get into now. But it's honestly an area that I don't want to continue to be harming my own health over. It's not worth it. There are so many things that I carried for so many years, and they played such a huge role in my choices. And I'm not proud of that. But when I began to do the work and to uncover and find out the reasons why was I reacting to things the way that I was? Number one, there were so many points of just not feeling safe. And that's a whole conversation of itself. I don't mean safe necessarily from another human being, but just safe. I mean, how often have you really looked and asked yourself, situation that's just not making me feel safe? Maybe it's because you just can't feel you can be yourself, or sometimes it's just because we don't know who we are. And that really allows for a feeling of not being safe, because we just don't understand what we're feeling. I know it might sound gibberish, but it does all come to end up making sense, complete sense. But when I started to do the work and dig in and find out where this behavior was coming from, it really began to open up a whole new batch of ahas and peace, because I could find, I could change that. Do I want to continue to be that way? And I had to choose yes or no. There's no middle ground. It's yes or no. And then the work, and let's change that word. Then the practice of doing better, of being better, of shedding layers, uncovering the real me began. And it is a practice. Just like minors in baseball, practicing, baseball players practice, musicians practice. Everybody practices something in their life, whether it's an instrument or whatever. But this is a practice when you're changing things about yourself and your life that you just find don't serve you anymore. It is a practice, because we are so conditioned to be a certain way, to be a way that others think that we should be, that you should be, and the way society thinks that you should be. When you begin to free yourself from that, it is a really awesome, amazing feeling. We make up so many excuses why not to do the work or practice the change, to make changes. Well, it's so hard. It's not easy is always a big one. I don't have time to do whatever it may entail. Well, do you have time? Is the time that you're spending being in pain and suffering, is that good use of your time? There's always some excuse that says it's too, or I'm too. There are excuses that come from our ego, that come from that source, that long line of conditioning. And it comes from fear. It comes from fear of, if you start trying to release things that don't serve you, there are other people in your life. And you ask yourself, well, what will they think? Or how will it affect them? Or I have to be this way, or this is the way I've always been. No. And you know what? This might sound harsh, but if there is someone in your life that is not comfortable or not happy about you changing, growing, becoming who you are meant to be, that's their issue, because they're uncomfortable with their own place in their own heads and hearts in life. You are not responsible for theirs. They are responsible for theirs. You are responsible for yours. I am responsible for mine. You cannot fix everyone. You can inspire through your own growth and expansion, but it's up to the other people around you to decide and to embrace their own practice of what is no longer serving them and they want to release. And it is up to them to make that choice, not you. And if they make things uncomfortable for you, you don't have to feel uncomfortable. You can love them and bless them and thank them for caring, give them compassion and grace, and continue your practice. It doesn't have to be, that wall doesn't have to be built bigger. I know about walls. I've had a big wall up for many, many years, and I've worked very hard to lower that wall a lot. Practicing, and I will say it is a lifetime of practice. And you're going, oh God, doesn't it end? You know what? It gets easier because those triggers, there's things that trigger you now as you're practicing and working through and releasing and shedding layers of conditioning. And the stress is actually lessening. It actually frees you to come back quicker from a trigger. So you reach a point where something occurs and you start to react and you go, oh, there it is. You can pause, you can take a breath, you can laugh about it. I call them review processes. And like being in school when you had to review before a test. Well, there's the little quiz you just had, the little test you just had. And it's not that you passed or failed. It's just something that, okay, I know that that situation, circumstance, feeling, thought, condition is still present, but I can pause and breathe, and I can give myself compassion and grace, laugh about it, and move on. Make a different response or not respond at all. I have this little, I'm changing the voices in my head. Not those voices, but you know, the thoughts that we have that sometimes we can call it well, I try to have a clean podcast, but the poopy committee, let's put it that way, in my head that will sometimes try to convince me that I should stay in a box. That voice, I can say back to that voice and say, you know, do I really need to respond at all? Do I need to react at all? Do I really need to? No. Those types of changes in my thoughts have helped me. That works for me. And that's comment is leading me up to how this practice gets a little simpler, a little easier, and actually a little bit more fun. Because so much of life, as I said, being and doing how others think you should. And I'll give you a simple example is just a societal thought that comes to mind. People love to run. There are so many people out there that just love running. It's therapeutic for them. It's meditative for them. It's whatever it is for them. It's their passion. They love running. You're not going to find me running. You're not going to find me running. It's just not my jam. It's not my thing. Just not me. So if somebody said to me, oh, well, you have to go run to get in shape and lose weight and clear your mind and all of this. No, I'm not going to do that because it's not mine. Someone else might say to you, oh, well, you have to go to the gym. You have to spin. You have to lift weights. You have to do this. You have to do that. Well, that may not be you. Someone might say, you have to wear, oh, you know those? Oh, I love these. Don't you just love these? Oh, if you're over 40, you shouldn't wear this, or you shouldn't have your hair like that. Or if you're over 50, or please, oh, please. But it's not you. Let's talk meditation. What just popped into your mind when I said meditation, besides the fact that, oh, I can't meditate, but what image came to mind? That person sitting in that pose, you can see it. Well, that's beautiful, but it might not be yours. And with me physically, with my knees, it's not mine. And it's just not comfortable for my body. So I have to create, not that I have to, I learned to create my own form of meditation. So when someone says, I can't meditate, or I can't do that, or I can't do this, my first thought is, well, you probably can. You just need to find yours. And that's the same throughout life. I can remember my dad giving me advice on career. And especially one couple that he mentioned just weren't me. And even at well, we're going to go back to childhood stuff later, but it wasn't me. And even when I did spend a short stint at something that he suggested, I knew it wasn't me. It just is not my personality, and that's okay. We can talk linear versus multi-passionate on another podcast. Actually, there is a podcast back with Jen Phipps that she brings that forth, multi-passionate and linear, the difference. We need both, we have both, but are you pushing yourself to be one when you're really the other? So check it out, go back in, it's one of the very first few episodes, Jen Phipps, multi-passionate versus linear. But this adapting is what really helps you find or create the tools and resources that will serve you, that you will love doing, because they make you feel good because you've designed them and they're yours. Where that started, when I wanted to teach yoga, I wanted to learn to teach yoga. I'd been taking it and I loved it, but there was just something I was hearing too much about people saying, I can't do yoga. I can't, you may have just said it yourself. I can't do yoga. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. First of all, you're thinking yoga is just the poses, the postures. They aren't. The postures are a segment of yoga. They're a portion of the yoga path. So I wanted to learn to teach differently. And I learned to teach adaptively, which means, as you can see, well, if I post this actual video, and if you were actually seeing me right now, you could see behind me that I have my assortment of bolsters, blocks, cushions, mats, blankets. They are extremely important to me for a few different reasons. But when I learned to teach and began teaching, it was blossoming before my eyes. And even though there were men in the class, I could see something, I could sense something was happening between the women and their poses. And that's exactly what it was, because if you're familiar with yoga, there's this particular pose, downward facing dog. And there's certain yoga poses that are also more vulnerable than others. They make you feel more vulnerable. And downward facing dog is definitely one. But it's not only a physical strength builder, it's an internal strength builder. And it's also a pose that when you're in yours, it really, stuff comes up. And I could take, let's just say 5 different clients, students, and have them be in 5 different downward facing dogs, because we were designing theirs with some form of prop. And there are some people who say, oh, use props in yoga, you're not really doing it. No, actually, you can even deepen your practice by using props. And I don't mean just your practice, but your journey. But that's kind of going to get deep into that. But by creating a pose that was theirs, they found a safe place in that pose where they could be. And when the voice would come up to them and say, get out of this, you got to get out of this, you can't be here, you should be off doing other things, they were able to take a breath or 2 breaths and remain and let that fear move through. And also life off the mat would come up. And because they were feeling safe where they were also feeling strong, because it was theirs and they could really be there. And, being there and being in the moment is not something that we really practice. It allowed life off the mat to come up. What was happening on the mat can be taken off the mat and helping in day-to-day life. I call it life on and off the mat. And it helps physically, internally, with all our organs. We see ourselves external all the time, and we get so wrapped up in life that you can really forget that you have all these massive internal organs inside that are also really struggling with the day-to-day stress. the adapting that we were doing, that adaptation is the same in other areas of your life. If you're forcing yourself into a pose, into a situation, into an experience, into some place, or with someone that you're not feeling safe, you're not feeling that you can breathe, you can be, that maybe you're not feeling fulfilled, you can adapt. Whether it's to adapt and remain in that situation, or whether it's to adapt yourself out to a different situation. And that is, when I teach, part of the practice, because it helps you find all those strengths that you have. And the bottom line is, you have the strength that you need to make these changes. It's scary, yes, but for the most part, unless we're talking something drastic, sometimes I will say, well, I'm not going to die. I'm going to try that, but I'm not going to die. I tried that and I didn't die. Because we just get so caught up in that ego and that fear. And fear is good. Fear is meant to keep us safe from the lions, tigers, and bears, oh my, but it's not meant to rule our life. So my whole point of this is, in drawing it into a conclusion, we don't have to keep living life on other people's terms. We don't have to remain in old patterns in reacting to life and experiences and people like we have been. They're not serving you if it's just causing you more stress, and it's causing stress to those that you love. We can adapt and find your own whatever that serves you. You don't have to do just because someone else says it has to be this way. It may not be your way. And it is a practice, making changes, breaking the cycles of both societal and generational conditioning, living life on your terms. And I will stress, because this is the bottom line. Yes, it's your life, your way. But if you are a parent, if you have children, all of these, I call them generational and societal curses, these curses that have been passed on to you, if you continue with them, using them, practicing them in your everyday life, you know where they're going to go. They're going to go to your children. Chances are really good that your children are going to pick up at least some of them. Do you want that? I have sons. I have two amazing sons. And when I began to open and learn, the first thing I thought of is, I want to break some of these cycles. I had, without knowing, really broken a couple, thank God. But I wanted to break more, because I do not want to pass the crappy stuff on to them. It is not our children's responsibility to carry our traumas. It is not their responsibility to carry our crap. And if you say, well, I don't have children, ladies, we are still mothers of this earth. You are still a nurturer. And it's up to us to make the changes and make our legacies better, to build more powerful legacies to leave behind us. So in my mind, in my heart and my soul, it's about my children. And now it's also about my grandchild. I will continue to do the work with myself, for myself, and for them. And I will leave you with this. It is possible. You're not alone. You are so not alone. If you wish to reach out and have a conversation, please do. Email me at kmyourlifeyourway@gmail.com. Yes, I am a stress and lifestyle management coach, but that doesn't mean we have to talk about coaching for you. If you'd just like to maybe get some ideas on possibilities for yourself, maybe in the smallest place to start, maybe it's just how to just relieve a little bit of stress in your day-to-day life. Reach out and have a conversation. kmyourlifeyourway@gmail.com. I wish you many blessings, much joy, a whole lot of fun, laugh a lot, dance like nobody's watching. Peace and blessings. Bye-bye. So much for joining me today. I hope you had at least a couple of takeaways that might be able to help you see where in your life that you can say no. You're going to find yours. You're going to be exactly who you are. And maybe this word is getting used to death, but your authentic self. Adapting doesn't mean reducing yourself. It doesn't mean weakening yourself. It doesn't mean finding a necessarily easier way. It's about finding your way. And that's what life is about. It's finding your way on this journey that you've been given. If you think this episode will be helpful to someone else that you know, please feel free to share. If we can help, my purpose, my mission is to help as many women as possible to find their way, not following the status quo of how we think we should be. So please feel free to share. I would love it if you could give me a review and some stars if you find it so in your heart. I would greatly appreciate it. Again, as we grow the listenership, we grow the opportunity to touch and serve more women. Thank you so much. I wish you much peace and many blessings. Namaste.